So, are you spending more than you need to when buying microphones? Keep watching to find out as we do some in-depth tests to see what the truth really is. Hi there, and a good day to you, and welcome to Studio Tips and Sound Advice. Today, we are going to be looking at different microphones, from the very cheap to the quite pricey, covering dynamics, a ribbon, and condensers, both large and small diaphragm, so you can make more informed judgments about what you want and how much you want to spend. It will be quite a journey, and I will again split it over a few videos. So grab your preferred beverage, pull up a chair, and let's get down to it. Now, it is true indeed that you can spend an eye-watering amount of money on a microphone, and conversely, you can spend very little. So, what should you do? How much should you spend? And what should you get? Indeed, are they just stealing your hard-earned cash? Let us firstly look at the different types before we get into testing, so you can understand the differences properly. Dynamic mics. These are pretty tough. They can take being hit by drumsticks, dropped by singers on stage, and this also means they are not particularly sensitive, which makes them great for loud sound sources such as guitar amps and snare drums, amongst other things. This also makes them usually among the cheaper options available, and also very versatile. They are a useful mic to have in your toolbox, and due to their cardioid polar pattern, see my earlier video, but not quite yet, wait till the end, they make a great choice for home recording, where you may not always have the best environment available. One thing I've noticed that they typically tend to have a presence boost in the high mids and a roll off in the bass. This makes them useful for instruments with a lot of low mid energy, but not so great for low end instruments such as bass and kick drum. However, they can be paired with additional mics that are better suited for those frequencies. And it should be noted that there are dynamic mics such as the AKG D112 that are specifically designed for bass instruments. Then we have condenser mics. These are much more fragile than dynamics, and they can vary enormously in price. Although in recent years, you've been able to find many more affordable variations becoming available. These produce a much more balanced sound and have a high frequency bump when compared with dynamics. This can make them sound sweeter and brighter, and this, along with their added sensitivity, makes them perfect for quieter, softer sounds and those that have a lot of detail in the higher end. This does mean they require a power source, however. Most of the time this is provided by phantom power from your console or interface, but some do come with their own power supply, like the AKG Solid Tube here. These often come with switchable polar patterns, and it makes them a powerful tool in the right environment, but they will pick up the sound of the room much more, and any unwanted noises that occur in the background, such as feet moving on a hard floor, or your bum fidgeting on a vinyl type seat. Yes, I've had that. And they can come in both large and small diaphragm configurations. Finally, we have ribbon mics. Now, these are much more delicate than the others, and they were very popular back in the 50s and 60s, but that was before dynamic and condenser mics really took off. They are always bidirectional, and as such they're best suited to being used in treated rooms. Traditionally, they were only suited for softer sounds such as the voice and strings, but modern variants are a lot more versatile and are creeping back in popularity. We are going to be looking at dynamics today. The most common use for beginners and home studios with microphones is recording vocals. Now, for this, you can happily use all three mic types, and it entirely depends on the vocalist and the song, as different types of microphones are popular for recording different genres and vocal tones. So let us get into the testing and results. And if you stick around to the end, well, I will give you a quick and easy guide that will help give you a good starting place to work from when considering which mics to use in which situations. So, To start with, as you can see, I set up 4 dynamic microphones very close together in my vocal booth to allow them to record the same sound source at the same time. As the sounds I was going to be using, a tambourine, my voice, and an acoustic guitar, could all vary depending on the performance, I wanted to avoid these issues. Each performance was around 30 to 40 centimeters from the mics, exactly in front of them. And for the acoustic, I lowered them down and had them aiming roughly halfway between the sound hole and where the neck joins the body. About here. Now, I know there are many options for how to mic an acoustic guitar, but this position is the easiest to work with quickly and provides the best option for multiple mics on a similar spot. Feel free to sound off in the comments below with any issues you have with my methodology, and if this video proves popular, well, I may revisit it, taking more time to address all the details, but for now, this just seems to work fine for me. The microphones. The SM58 is something I've owned for years. Its current list price at a well-known European-based music store is £88. The SM57, another one of my long-term collection, is also listed at £88. The red RVD30 is not available at the same store, but from their own online store, it is £36. The Behringer XM1800S is not available individually from the store. They come in packs of 3 for 30 quid. So, with my extensive math skills, I reckon we can say that they're £10 each, which with my incredible math skills works out a little over 11% of the price of the Shure mics. Both the RVD30 and the Behringer are what I use in my rehearsal room, so none of these mics are brand new and unused. Maybe if the companies want me to use new ones, they can sponsor a future episode, but I'm not going to wait around. Let's start with the voice. That's as good a place as any. Now, this is just some of my own lyrics and melody from an old song I wrote so as to avoid copyright issues and everything. I also sang it without any backing track as I don't have one to hand, and for such short snippets it just seemed pointless really. This first take is singing with a lower register voice. I've spent my whole life on the streets and seen what they've become. I've spent my whole life on the streets and seen what they've become. I've spent my whole life on the streets and seen what they've become. I've spent my whole life on the streets and seen what they've become. Now, I don't know about you, but there seems very little difference going on here. Slight variations in the frequency response, especially with the red mic, but none of them sound awful. And if I did a blindfolded test, I would hazard a guess you couldn't pick up the Shure mics any better than random guessing. So now this is a slightly higher register voice. While the kids around here just kill themselves in 1,000 different ways. While the kids around here just kill themselves in 1,000 different ways. While the kids around here just kill themselves in 1,000 different ways. While the kids around here just kill themselves in 1,000 different ways. Well, again, I would argue the same findings. Okay, so what about another commonly mic'd up sound source of the acoustic guitar? Now, this has much more variation tonally than the voice. I'm purely doing a very basic strum as I am more concerned with the guitar's position to the mics than the performance. So, what do you think? Can you pick out the mics that are 9 times as expensive? Would you pay 9 times as much for that result? Okay, let's get onto some much higher frequencies and see if we can hear some difference there. This is a tambourine. And yet again, I think anyone would be hard pushed to pick out a favourite. But please comment below with your thoughts. And if you want WAV copies of these files to listen to, well, just ask. So, we have done the subjective testing of voice, guitar and tambourine to try and let our ears be the judge and jury. But how about we get more objective and we start using our eyes instead? And now we start to see some differences, but probably not the ones you're expecting. So here I set up each mic individually in my vocal booth with a small speaker playing test tones 15 centimeters from the microphone grill. I did them individually so the position would be identical, the cables would be the same and the desk channel also the same, and altered no settings after getting a good strong signal that didn't peak on the loudest responses. I used a series of test tones of 100, 400, 800, 1 kHz, 2.5 kHz, 5, 10, 12 and 15 kHz. Now as you can see from what I recorded in my DAW, there's quite a variation across the frequency response. The Behringer producing the strongest signals almost across the board, with the exception of the red mic that was slightly better at 10 kHz. Anyway, have a look at this. So I used the numbers I got and I plotted a rough graph. Now, I know it's not perfect as we are dealing with logarithmic scales with decibels and my frequency choices are not entirely even, but that is beside the point here. What can clearly be seen that surprised me is the bump at 400 Hz. Now the rest of the variations are quite even without getting overly pedantic. The fact that the Behringer is obviously louder, well, that is easily compensated for with a bit of extra gain on the desk. And anyway, it could be down to old age and wear and tear, or it could just be the way they behave. However, without having multiple new mics of each type to test, it is difficult to be 100% sure. It may even be down to the relative positions that I put them in. And again, if we wanted to spend a considerable amount of time, I could redo the tests, rotating each mic into different positions. But that would not change the fact that the cheap old Behringer at a tenner has shown itself to be remarkably proficient when stacked up against, well, significantly more expensive industry standards. Now, another point I want to make is that these are all pure sounds. All I have done is boost the signals to eliminate their difference in volume to make the playback a level playing field. There is no EQ and no compression applied at all. And to that end, I would have to also argue that once you've done some post-production on any of them and put them in a mix with other instruments and performances, well, the differences are going to be even less apparent. So, I think that is about enough work with dynamic mics. Still to come are condenser and ribbon mics, but that can be next week. And then maybe we'll chuck everything on a guitar amp to see how they fare under that situation. But for now, as I promised at the start, a little bit of a general overview that you can use as a starting point for choosing which mics to try in which situation. Dynamic mics tend to be better for more aggressive singers in genres like rock and metal, whereas condenser mics are quite often better for more controlled genres like alternative and pop. And ribbon mics, well, they can be really good for vibey genres like folk and jazz and blues. Now, a warm singer might want to use a dynamic mic to accent their natural timbre, but they might also want to use a small diaphragm condenser to counteract it if it appears too much. Whereas a bright singer might want to use a condenser mic to accentuate their natural timbre, but they could also use a ribbon mic if it's felt the tone needs to be tamed a little bit. Now you see, the variety of options here is why it can be of benefit to have various microphone types that you can try depending on the scenario, because you won't know what sounds best until you try it. As always, if you have any questions or you think I've missed something, use the comment section below. And before you leave, if you found this useful, hit the like button so YouTube knows this and shares it with others. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you get notified when the next video is ready for your enjoyment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Have a great day.